this quickly. This is an effing disaster. I'll just start off by saying that. So we've been monitoring this for a little while, but the lobbying groups typically represent the landlord side, Greater Boston Real Estate Board, RHA. They really got caught with their pants down on this, and this was kind of pushed through in a lot of informal sessions. And next thing you know, Governor Baker said, yeah, he was interested in signing it, and it blazed right through very quickly. And I can tell you now, having done the research, is that this is really unprecedented. There's never been, at least as far as my research goes, never been a legislative, law put in place that literally closes the courthouse door to anybody, never mind just landlords, tenants, or just anybody. That has never happened in the 270 years that Commonwealth's been around. So it's pretty breathtaking. So basically, if you're in need of evicting a tenant, either you want to evict a tenant, you want to send a notice to quit, or you have a eviction case pending, you are in trouble, because that ain't going to happen anytime soon. This moratorium is in effect through the state of emergency. I'll go through that on the next slide. 45 days after, and then Governor Baker's authorized to extend it for 90-day periods, successive 90-day periods at his own discretion. So this has the potential to could last all the way through the end of the year. It could even be separated from the state of emergency. They can do lots of different things with this. Now that it's in place, that was the hard part. Keeping it in place is going to be less difficult for them. So I believe it covers 80% of all evictions, all non-payments evictions, all no-fault evictions, which would be when a lease ends, or if it's a 30-day tenancy at will, that you want to just terminate the tenancy like you could. You can't do that anymore. Tenant leases up in April here, April 30th. I want to get the tenant out. Nope, you can't do it. You can try.
I think it's important, Rich, to note about if you're a home buyer or home seller that's trying to sell or buy a property vacant. You can't do that either. It's
correct.
No notices for that. No notice because somebody wants to move in.
Well, you can't. You cannot send a notice that deals with any termination of a tenancy. So that would, potentially cover that. There is an exception for cause evictions, which would be behavioral type situations if the tenant is engaged in criminal activity or a lease violation, which impacts the health and safety of other residents. But we just got word today that the housing court has stopped all filings and all eviction cases. It doesn't matter what it is, and that's coming directly from the Chief Justice. So unless this is challenged in court, really nothing is going to be happening at the housing court anytime soon. It also applies to certain commercial leases. Small business, and in their world, a small business can be up to 149 employees. So that's not so small. So that's going to cover a lot of commercial leases too. So those folks are staying in place. Can't evict those either, even if they don't pay. The only thing it doesn't apply to are, say, multi-state chains, international, publicly traded companies. So, the big guys, they already got their PPE money, so they're all set. The Rich Chris of the world, they're all set. They're not going anywhere anyways. So it's the small tenants, the small businesses that are going to be staying. One sec here. Okay. All right, so going to the notice, so not only, they're stopping evictions, but they're also prohibiting landlords from issuing notices to quit or terminate, as we just, Jordan and I just discussed. So that's a big deal, because oftentimes just the receipt and sending of a notice to quit would get a tenant to pay, or at least engage the tenant in some kind of dialogue where, say, what's up, you're having trouble financially. So you can't, you can't send a legal notice to get that conversation going. So we're trying to figure out, how best to approach tenants. You got to be very careful because this is going to get thrown back in your face if you're a landlord. So, we're advising tenants to, not saying you can't necessarily start a conversation, but don't put it in writing, don't text, don't email, have an over the phone conversation. That way it can't be, there can't be any documented proof that you're trying to pressure a tenant to get out, or you're trying to essentially do a bypass of this moratorium. So like I said, all housing district courts, the courthouse doors closed, pending cases, nothing's going to happen with those either. So I'm being asked, well, how long is this going to go for? We don't know. We're hearing that Baker's going to extend the state of emergency soon now that he closed schools down. So my best guess is that the state of emergency is going to stay in place through the end of the school year. So that would be at the end of June. That's my best guess. I'm pretty confident about that. And then depending how things are, it could be extended because he could still lift you don't have to worry about school. The problem is everything is being tied to the state of emergency. So all these bills that are being passed, unemployment, this one, there's a wage one, there's municipal permits. There's a lot of different things that are now being tied into the state of emergency. So it could go on longer than maybe we think, if we're kind of reopening the economy, the state of emergency still can be in place. So that means you still can't evict people. So we'll have to see how it plays out. Late fees are also suspended in time. You can't report delinquencies to credit reporting agencies unless if the tenant provides documentation that the financial hardship related to COVID. So this is a new one, and we're gonna have to see how this plays out. But Jordana and I would definitely advise any landlord, just don't take any adverse action against a tenant who's not paying in this COVID-19 crisis while this moratorium is in effect, because you're just risking, a retaliation type claim or, a strong letter from the Attorney General. They tried to throw us a bone by saying you can use the last month's rent deposit, not the security deposit, that's in the statute, to pay for mortgage and property expenses. You can use the security deposit to pay for rent as long as you comply with all the requirements of the law, which are many, and many traps stand wary. But at the end of the day, if you use the last month's rent deposit, you got to account for it at the end of the term. So you're really just kind of borrowing from the tenant, and you have to pay it back. So I wouldn't advise any landlord to even touch that. It's just not worth the trouble. So that's not helpful. So I covered the length. It's really a moving target indefinitely. We don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. Part of the bill deals with foreclosures. So, and this is where the inequities come into play. So residential foreclosures are going to be prohibited while the same length of time. So basically indefinite. It's a little unclear, but to me it appears, and I'll see what Jordan has to say, that the foreclosure relief does not apply to a investment property mortgage or a rental property mortgage. It only applies to the kind of standard conventional residential mortgage. So what's happening here is, the pain is being shifted from the tenants to the landlords. So you're not, you got a 2 or 3 family classic situation where the owner occupied lives in the bottom floor, rent from the unit 2, unit 3 would cover the mortgage and the taxes. So unit 2 or unit 3 doesn't pay, owner occupant still has to pay their mortgage. And so, shit literally is rolling downhill and rolling right down the stairs into the unit occupant's lap. And they're going to be the ones stuck holding the bag. So it's a problem. We are also already hearing, and Twitter is kind of lit up already about tenants thinking that essentially this is some form of rent strike, or gives them an excuse or reason not to pay rent, even if they have the financial means to do so. They're basically sticking up their middle finger at landlords and saying, well, so sue me. Well, you can't do that. So why should I pay? I heard this one story that someone got their stimulus payment, it was direct deposit, and the guy sent him a screenshot of it and said something like, F you, I ain't paying my rent, Maja 2020. So, people are, again, this is the unintended impacts of the law. And it's no surprise that certain people are going to take advantage of it, unfortunately. So Jordana and I and attorney Peter Vickery out in Western Mass, where we've been scripted to file a legal challenge to the moratorium bill, and we're currently organizing it. We think that it has an actual decent shot of being heard and struck down by the SJC. This is unprecedented, first time that we really have a law that's literally shutting the courthouse door, and the right to access to courts is a fundamental civil right under our Constitution. And there's other clauses that are in play as well that are equally as important and equally potentially meritorious. So we're looking into how best to set that up. Obviously, it's a lot of work, and we need plaintiffs and we need funding. We're trying to raise $30,000. I set up PayPal, essentially PayPal GoFundMe site. We're working with some of the larger organizations to see if they're going to jump in. We're hopeful that some of them will, or all of them will, and we can get some funding there. But we have people chipping in $25, $50. Already raised like $2,000 in 24 hours, so we got a pretty decent start. So I'm definitely dedicated to seeing this thing through, even if most of our funding isn't coming through. I feel very strongly about this, and it's going to be a good case, and going to have a good shot at winning it. So what I'd ask you folks to help out with is just spreading the word to anyone landlords, property managers, those type of rental brokers who would have contacts and would be willing to chip in, even if it's $20 or $50 or obviously we'd love to have some big dollars. Someone just donated 1,000, so if we can get a bunch of those, then we're in business. So I could send you guys the link for that. That's pretty much it on the moratorium. So any questions from anybody?
A small update is that I have good authority that the clerk's office of the housing court is on a meeting of sorts. I don't know if it's a Zoom call or what, with CJ Sullivan tomorrow to understand further what they're supposed to be doing. I reached out to a clerk and said, why are you rejecting agreements? This is something that you're supposed to be doing. I have all these cause cases. And she said they're meeting tomorrow morning and she will get back to me. Or he or she or whoever it was that I spoke to. Wink, wink.
Got it. Yeah, so thank you, Jordana. Well, we'll see what happens. Either way, we gotta challenge it. It's a slippery slope, because now that it's in play, if we have a round 2 of COVID in the winter, which they say could be equal, if it could be worse even, they could put this right back into place, or the next recession, or rent control. So this is, this opens the door to a lot of things that are very much adverse to the small property owners. So we're hoping that we're able to do it.
This is Bill Wright. Mike, can you hear me okay?
Can hear you. Yeah.
The First of all, I think it's just great that you're, willing to fight and I've been spreading the word. Sorry, my camera thing, it said I have to quit it before it's accessible. I'm not on it. But one question I did have is just when I, brought it up to a few other landlords, I do, kind of focus in Somerville, in the Boston area. But do you know the time frame and expectations in terms of, being able to, have a judgment on this? And then also, is there a case law? You said there's a good chance for it being overruled. Is there case law to, I know this is unprecedented, but, is there case law, for example, to support someone's right to court and some of the other arguments that, collectively you and the two other attorneys are looking to pursue?
Yeah. So in terms of, time frame, with getting into court, we were hoping we could get in at some point next week. My preference is to file a direct appeal to the Supreme Judicial Court. So there's been two other COVID-related cases that have been fast-tracked, one involving the prisons with COVID and the other involving the ballot question. Both were direct appeals to the SJC and both went up very quickly. And there was argument and a decision. I think it was only like 2 weeks. It was
the ballot case was filed on April 8th, and I think the decision came out either yesterday or Monday.
Yeah.
So that's 12,
I think
12 days.
Yeah, 2 weeks or so. And same with the prison case, came down very, very quickly too. So the answer to your question about legal precedent, so we already have two. It doesn't per se involve access to courts, but it's still the right to vote. That's fundamental of the Mass Constitution. Prisoners' rights, cruel and unusual punishment. Again, that's a Bill of Rights issue. So the SJC sided with both of those plaintiffs who were asserting state and federal constitutional rights over the exigent circumstances brought out by the COVID-19 crisis. So they took the side of the civil rights. There has been a bunch of cases dealing with not so much, a complete ban on filing a case in court. Again, this has never happened before, but the legislature has tried to tinker with statute of limitations, some other procedural things, and the SJC has struck down those laws on access to justice. But article is something called Article 30, which basically it's a stay in your lane provision, which says, hey, legislatures, you can't tell the court how to run their show. And that's actually, I think, one of the better arguments, because the SJC is not going to be very happy that a bunch of state reps are essentially telling them how to run their courts. So that, I wouldn't be surprised if that actually won the day, because it's quite a narrow ruling, but you'd still be able to win. We'll have to see what happens, but I think there's 2 or 3 very strong, potentially very winning arguments. Julian and I have been arguing about, do we have a 50-50 shot? I think it's more like 60-40. And it's like, no, Jordana's a little bit more conservative than me. So she's I think it's like 60-40 in our favor.
But I still think you should contribute.
Exactly. No, that it makes it even.
I like to win. I don't like to lose.
I hear you. No, but it makes it even a better argument for people to contribute, because you don't want to contribute to, a losing cause. And this is not going to be a losing cause. So, and plus,
my last question, because it came up when I was speaking to another much larger developer in the Somerville area, but have you guys considered something like this, like that the stakes are so big, and what would be really unfortunate is whether even if it was someone else, if it went to court really quick, and maybe there's a nuance where the judgment wasn't and in our favor in this case, which would really be detrimental. So I guess their question was just the strategy in terms of, coordinating with other experts. You seem to obviously be, super qualified. You're working with two others, but even others where it's essentially kind of coordinating more of a dream team to just to make sure that like all of the all the dots and T's are crossed, and just to make sure that it's as successful as possible in collaboration with other experts who might be able to contribute. And you would know better than me about that coordination, but I guess the concern is jumping into this really quick, where if it doesn't go in the favor, then there's a precedent where the state is allowed to violate constitutional rights in this example.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying. Thanks for saying it in a respectful way. I guess F. Lee Bailey and Johnny Cochran aren't available for this appeal. So Jordana and I have I've handled over 20 appeals, and Jordana's handled a bunch. And the problem is you get someone like a Michael Keating from Foley Hoag, who top-notch lawyer, and he's been to the SJC 30 times. His billing rate's
and
1,000.
he was my writing teacher in law school.
His billing rate is like $800 an hour plus. So you gotta pay for the big boys, and they ain't working for free these days. So Mass Landlords, Rental Housing Association, Black Diamond, they all have confidence in me, Jordana, and Peter Vickery. It's not rocket science. We're not dealing with this isn't Roe v. Wade. So I'm confident. But we do have, the answer to your question, we do have some other lawyers in the bullpen that are also landlord-tenant experts, and they will be consulted and kind of our second ears and eyes. So, yeah.
So Rich, can I ask one question?
Sure.
So you're going to the housing court.
No, we're going to go to the SJC first.
Oh, you're going to go to the SJC first.
Directly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. That's what both of the new COVID cases did under the general superintendent's powers. And both of them were accepted and fast tracked. So we have that precedent. And I think, frankly, I think that the justices are waiting for this case to come up. Certainly the housing court is. And the SJC, they know what's going on, and they'll take it. I have a good feeling they'll take it. And the oral arguments these days are telephonically, so it's a bizarre world. They're not holding active court sessions in the courthouse. So the last two COVID cases, the arguments have all been telephonically, not even Zoom. So it's a bizarre situation. I mean, last time I was before the SJC and the appeals court, you're there in person, and you have the row of justices with the timers and the lamps, and
how are they going to enforce the timing? There's no red light.
They tell you when from what I've seen, they tell you when you have 5 minutes and 2 minutes. So the most important thing will be the quality of the writing, and as Jordana knows, some of you guys know, that's one of my fortes. So we already have a legal memorandum drafted. So if someone wanted to see that confidentially, we could potentially kind of show you the quality of our work, which I think is very good.
And Rich and I will be having an article coming out soon in the Mass Bar Journal, the Lawyer's Journal.
Mm-hmm.
They just take forever to print, so we have to keep changing it because more people are dying and all kinds of crazy new laws are being passed between the time that we actually first wrote it and now.
Yeah, yeah. The
So
first
check
the first
that out
started.
in the next issue of the Mass Lawyers Journal.
There you go.
My last question, I've been, I do agree with your write-ups, Rich. I've been really impressed. And if someone, I'm going to continue to certainly recruit and just, so those funds can get to where you need it to be. What communication methods do you prefer? If someone has a question or just, got your link for the funding, but, if someone just has a question,
Yeah, just if they were just to email me first and just
Sure.
give me a heads up that, who they are, they have a question, then if they want to talk on the phone, I'm happy to do that. Or if they want to go through email, that's fine too. Whatever,
Okay, sure.
Obviously we're trying to, so the other part of it, just so you know, is we're also working with mass landlords and also possibly Greater Boston Real Estate Board and the National Rental Housing Association that are going to be jumping on in support of the case. Or they're going to be writing friend of the court briefs. So we're going to have some of the heavy hitter associations that are going to be backstopping us. Jerry, you okay there? You got a situation?
Yeah, I'm good. Hey, question though.
Yeah.
So if we're showing as a realtor, if we're showing a multifamily occupied, what kind of liability do we have?
If you're
Us
showing
and the landlord?
if you're showing a multifamily occupied,
Yeah.
and you're bringing people into the house that might have COVID-19,
Us personally, the buyer. What kind of liability is there for us?
you have liability for negligence, or for if you're not utilizing the proper precautions. You let someone into the house not without a mask or without gloves, and it could be proven that you deviated from the standard of care or the safety guidelines, and as a result, someone got infected and someone got sick. Then yeah, they can pin it on you.
So is there a uniform guideline?
Is your uniform guideline for like a legal uniform guideline?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of, but it would default to kind of what we call tort, standard of care. Kind of like a, personal injury case.
So who's got the deepest pockets?
It'll go to the realtor. Who's got the biggest insurance company behind them?
Right. It'll go to the realtor. It'll go to the firm. It'll go to the landlord. It'll go to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even though they got it working at the shop and save or whatever, they'll say, "Hey, you showed my unit."
Yeah, well, they would have an issue with what's called causation. How they have to prove that your negligence resulted in their infection, so they would have to link that up. I would think that would be kind of difficult.
Okay.
But there's a waiver and release that's been going around, like before someone enters a house. That not that those things aren't necessarily ironclad, but it does, at least you can make the argument that that person was kind of aware of the risks and on notice of potential risks. So
Should there be a waiver or something signed by the tenant saying that they give the authorization to show the unit, or is this like getting too overthinking it?
The tenant, yeah, anyone that has the potential to be exposed to someone else, I would say yes. I would be very hesitant as a broker to show any tenant occupied unit whatsoever.
I agree.
What about residential occupied?
When you say residential, what do you mean?
Like if I'm selling my house,
You're the homeowner.
I'm the homeowner.
Right. At that point,
Yeah.
the homeowner agrees.
Yeah, that's
when you have-
different.
Okay.
A tenant
when you
is more like not held hostage, but they kind of are these days. Kind of a prisoner in their own homes when, and I know a lot of tenants are saying, they're not letting people in.
Right.
So they're
They might
having,
have agreed to in the lease.
yeah,
the
but they're
lease
still
didn't-
saying, yeah,
didn't,
no. I mean, I wouldn't let, I mean, if I were renting and so on, I'd be like, no effing way, you know, go sue me in the housing court that's closed.
Right. Well, that was my whole point.
Go
That's why I wanted
for
to bring
it.
that's why I
Go
wanted to
for it.
bring this up. But
Yeah, yeah.
Just
Yeah, that's not a
another
good-
way for us to get screwed, Jerry.
well, yeah, I know.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you know, I guess you got to go, you know, try to go as virtual as you can until this thing cools down. But I mean, there's talk now already with the feds and certain states that they're going to pass some type of, liability or indemnification, you know, for businesses or professions that are allowed to open up. But you know, the Republicans are obviously pushing for it, but the Democrats are pushing back. And you know, Democrats control the House, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I mean, like I've been telling people, like, yeah, the government might say, yeah, you can open, but a lot of businesses are going to say, I'm not taking that risk. Like my insurance company, like they're going to say, you know, no way. Like, or they're going to say, you have to do X, Y, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like this whole long list of, we'll insure you only if you, you know, comply and certify that you've done all this stuff. And like businesses might say, I can't do it, you know? So the insurance is really, that's the next battlefront. That hasn't been talked about in the media, but I can tell you,
It will be.
it will be. Yeah, it will be. So, good times.
Yeah.
Good times. Anyone else have any bitching, moaning, questions, comments?
So I guess one more thing is, so with the multifamilies, non-owner occupied, tenants don't have to pay the rent. How is this not going to turn into another short sale foreclosure fiasco?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has the potential to do it. The only way is if the lenders kind of make a kind of a group decision that, you know, we're gonna hold off on doing any foreclosures. I mean, the fact is that you know, like the land court, you got to go to land court in Massachusetts to do a foreclosure, and they're really much they're virtually shut down.
They're shut down.
Well,
So
even if they weren't shut down, it still takes how many months to do a foreclosure in Massachusetts? So
Yeah,
this whole 120-day bullshit.
I mean, take up to a year.
Doesn't really matter because it's going to take even longer to do that than to do a
Yeah.
foreclosure in Massachusetts to begin with.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. So, I mean, and we're going to see if it hasn't been created already, like the COVID-19 defense or the COVID-19, you know, affirmative, like it's coming. And
Don't
give them any ideas. It's coming though. And some courts might say, yep, we're buying it. So, cause it's, you know, an act of God, force majeure, as they say, you know, no one, as Trump likes to say, no one could have predicted that this would happen except for the people that I fired, the pandemic team.
I just got rid of my short sales, for Christ's sake.
That's right. I remember, you know, what is it? 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was short sale heaven, baby.
Oh my God, files this thick. Oh
Man, we got to dust off all my recession posts, short sales, post foreclosure, modifications.
I started in 1988. I don't know. Is this like my 5th recession now? I can't keep track
Third.
anymore.
So wait, 87, 88, that was
90, 92, 93.
93. Yeah.
You've only had 3 like me. Don't worry about it.
Jerry, you don't get to tell me what to do.
The .com blip. Yeah.
2008.
What do all those have in common, by the way? I'm just kidding. I don't know. No more politics. Sorry.
What do we all have in common? Is that what
No,
you
I
asked?
said what do all those recessions have in common?
Oh, yeah. Well,
No. Anyways, yeah. So, all right, 8:44. I'm beat. I was up at 4 a.m. working on all this stuff, so I'm about to crash out.
Crazy.
No, yeah, I feel like I'm doing more work than I did before COVID, so it's crazy. So y'all have a good night, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank
I said, now
you.
get to know if you like her.
Peace out. Yeah,
Seems
stay
like
safe.
the least I could do. 'Cause when he's charging his chopper up and down your carpeted halls, you'll think me by contrast quite proper.